Go.
After, when the Russians came into Mauthausen, they evacuated all the former prisoners to a village that the people from the village should feed us, taking care.
This was a German village?
Austrian village, Austrian. We were in a village in the school where we slept, and they used to cook for us the meals. And I was.
When was this? What month?
This was I don't remember. It was like I left like must have been like July or
45.
Because exactly can't, I don't know. I know I was a time in Mauthausen in where it was operated, and then when
you were operated for your hernia.
Yes, and then while I was recuperating, the Americans moved out to a certain calf where the Russian took over, and they took over Mauthausen. And soon after they took over, they evacuated. They told everybody to go home, and those who didn't want, we were put in a village, like I told you, in state in school. And there I was with a Częstochow man who has tuberculosis. And he told me when the Americans, they used to take care of him. In one day he started to cough and coughed out blood, and he died there. And I guess they buried him there in a non-Jewish cemetery. After the war, when I came to Częstochow, which I'm gonna tell, I met someone. I told him the name, because now I don't remember, but he told me he had a brother in Częstochow. So, but from there, they got tired of caring for us, so we left this village.
How many of you were there?
There were a group of us from Poland, all kinds, not only Jewish people, Ukrainian, Polacks, we took the trains on the way to Czechoslovakia, to Bratislava. But I remember the beautiful ride. First of all, we came to Vienna. In Vienna, we got out of the train station, a huge train station, and there were so many Russian soldiers. In the first time I saw a kid, a soldier from the Russian.
How old was he?
He must have been out like 10, 12, but the Russian, if maybe the father was killed, and he was he was traveling with the soldiers, like belonged to the army. And when he saw high officer, he used to salute to him. We met there the first time a Jewish Russian soldier. He was delighted that he had talked Yiddish, and he started to talk with him. Then a higher officer went through. He said he shouldn't be with us because we may be contaminated, dirty. But from Vienna, I'll never forget the trip on the train alongside the Danube. Danube. And both sides were hills where they grew grapes, and I couldn't. I was so taken by it, the beauty of it, how the vines grew on the hills, and that we got to Bratislava. In Bratislava, we settled in a hotel Daxa on the main street, and there was electric train street, the tram we used to take. And there was the huge square, like Hotel Yellen, where Russian soldiers used to come. They used to trade, sell, buy watches and sell things. Well, it was unbelievable. The rooms were very dirty in this, because wherever refugees settled, they didn't keep clean the toilets, and this, everything was overflowing. We used to eat the meals. They had a Jewish committee. They used to give us some money in warm meals once a day. Ulica Żydowska was where the kitchen was from this Jewish committee. In one day, walking on the street, a girl which was...
How long were you in Bratislava?
A few weeks. I don't. One thing I know, that I met my sister's Rosh Hashanah that year. Erev Rosh Hashanah I got. But how did it come to it? When the sister recognized me, that I am the Lax's brother, because she was in Krakow together, and she told me.
Who recognized you?
A woman who was with my sisters, a girl, and she told me.
In Bratislava?
Yeah, she left apparently Częstochowa, and because then was after the riot in Radomsk, that the pogrom in Radomsk, and or in Kielce, I think Radom, not Radom, where they killed kibbutz in one room, the Polish population in the Polish police. There was two incidents in Kielce, one and one in Radom, and this triggered Jews to leave Poland. But when she told me my sisters are in Częstochowa and waiting for me to see, I didn't wait too long. I went to Praga, and there were, I suppose, there had been issued paper to be able to go back to Poland. And in Praga we stayed a few days. But
were you traveling alone, or was anyone else?
Not a few people. I don't remember exactly, from women from Lodz. There were a few people more. No, I wasn't alone. But I don't remember their names. But in Praga, they were taking care of the refugees. They didn't have by themselves what to eat, but potatoes and cabbage. Branbury, I think, is the name of cherries, but potatoes in cabbage. This is what they used to serve. In beer they had enough. And somehow it took a few days until I got some papers, and I sat on a train to go back to Poland. And on the train, somehow there was I had paper money, I forgot, from Czechoslovakia, that I got from the Jewish committee in Bratislava, and a Russian soldier wanted to give me for it, I don't remember, zlotys. I wanted to exchange, and the Russian soldier didn't like, because I wanted more. So he called up a policeman from the Slovakians, from the country. He came and he asked me. So I said, he said to the Russian, he can ask whatever he wants. Okay, and then there was very big excitement passing the border where they have the Polish had on the outside the station signs, welcome former prisoners, now citizens of a free country. But for me, I carried from Mauthausen blankets, woolen blankets. Then there was a lot of black market. People used to go forth and back and smuggle, sell. And they took me out from the station, and they said, Polish police, and they searched me, and I was furious. And they had the audacity to take away one blanket. I had 3. But then when I protested, they said they're gonna take me to a camp, to a concentration camp. When I protested, okay, we were on our train to Czechoslovakia, to Częstochowa from Czechoslovakia, and I arrived in the morning. Like
in Częstochow, which is in Poland.
Yeah, where my sister's supposed to be, and they told me Garibalda is a kibbutz from a girls. So I went in there, and there happened to be very religious girls at kibbutz, and they were davening. Nobody even wanted to tell me, and I realized my sisters are not there. So I went to the Jewish committee. Every town had their Jewish committee. And by, I don't know, I met the leader from kibbutz, which was their leader when they were in Częstochow. And he, in Israel, I don't remember his name exactly. And he helped me get, they used to give a kilo sugar and bread, and I got ticket to go to Wrzeszcz, to Danzig. Your
sisters had left Częstochow by then?
Yeah, and he told me first Manya and Berta and Hannah left a few weeks before, but Zahava left.
Hannah, your cousin.
Yeah, we were together. She was like a Laksuvna. And then Zahava, he told me, left the last Sundays, a few days before I arrived there. So I got ticket to go to Danzig, which is most northern part of from Poland. It wasn't like today. You didn't travel in regular trains like with but most people, the trains were overloaded and with Russian and military and other military. So I'll never forget, first we got to Lodz. Lodz was at night, and they told us there's a train to Danzig, you have to go to another station, leave the station, and we got to the station, and the train came from on the way to Danzig, was full. People went up on the roof. People were holding up to the miftan, the trap, where you what's it called, where you go when you go into the train. You stoop like
the steps leading
the
up.
Step get to the train. Every place was like flies hanging around someplace, and I couldn't go inside, so I was outside, and I managed at the end to find a place to sit down between two trains, the bumpers, and there was a place where they used to put a lantern, and I said like a little flat iron, and I used to sit down between the lanterns, and this is how I traveled.
How long was the ride?
The ride was almost, I'll tell you. So at night I was very tired, but I was afraid to fall asleep. If I would fall asleep there, I could have wound up between the trains. I traveled like this all night. In the morning, the train stopped in Bydgoszcz. This is already north, and there I managed to get out and got a seat in a caboose in the train with another. And we got to Brześć. This is
suburb?
A suburb of Danzig, which wasn't. Danzig was no one house was there in peace. Everything was destroyed. It was very. The Germans fought very hard until they moved away. When I got to Brześć, they told me where to go, a Jewish committee, and I got to the committee. Was already Erev Yom Tov, like afternoon, and I remember I met a few girl, Clara, another, and they spoke Polish. Like the brother of Laksuvnes, and they went home, and you can you can how our we were happy to meet again, you know. No, I was always thinking about them, because since we separated in Skarżysk, I didn't see them anymore. I didn't know where they were, and they didn't know from me.
How long had it been? When were you separated in Skarżysk?
In 1944, like in July.
So it was from July 44 to September 45.
Yeah, but it was. We went through a lot. They were actually they went only evacuated to Leipzig. They worked in a Hassack factory in Leipzig, but from there, I was from after I left Skarżysk, I was in what is the name of the camp where we worked in preparing the German near Piotrków, near Piotrków. And then I was in from Piotrków. We went to Częstochowiana in Częstochow, and from there to Buchenwald, and from Buchenwald they sent us to Flensburg, and from Flensburg to Mauthausen. So I quite in a lot of camps. So of course.
Where were your sisters staying when you met them?
In the kibbutz. I joined the kibbutz too. We were prepared to go to Israel. In Manya was the economist, that she was buying bread and things, and I didn't have clothing almost, but I have boots like they used to wear in the when they fought in the desert in Libya. They had boots from not from leather, but and they used to have hats which covered the back. So I had very little things so they bought me a jacket, and I was happy to be in kibbutz, to eat, to have a bed, and but I was disappointed because I thought we're gonna live still as a family, but I realized forget about it. And then I got we got all brainwashed to be Halitzim, to go to Israel. Who didn't want to go? And this is a different story. How we traveled from Danzig to go back to Czechoslovakia. From there, we were taken. This was already in fall 19. After a few months, we left this on the way to make Aliyah. It's how many minutes enough?